With TSD Talks.
After a feverish week spent rendering and re-rendering and re-uploading various over 20 alterations of an ill-fated over-the-hedge video, I pass out and I come to in a strange room. There's white linen, there's a sort of medical smell in the air. It turns out I've had a mental break and I was so stressed out, I entered a horrible coma, and I've come to in a strange, magical, distant future where my video was such a success, it transformed the world, and we're now living in a world where YouTube culture has gone mainstream. So I'm waking up in the Mr. Beast Metropolitan Health Center, which of course is a BetterHelp hospital. And in BetterHelp hospitals, doctors aren't qualified, they just kind of jab you with needles. And would you look at that, someone's just shoving all manner of chemicals into my arms right now. Hey, it's my doctor, TSD. How you doing, TSD?
You're not supposed to be awake. God, I guess this adrenaline really does actually do something.
Yeah, you hit me with a get up and go juice instead of the sleepy juice.
Yeah, but don't worry, I have my nurse with me to help. Daniel Goldhorn. In this.
Look at that! It's this strange half man, half goat creature.
It is the future.
How are you doing? How you doing, Nurse Goldhorn? How's things over there on the other side of the room?
Well, on the other side of the room here, things are pretty quiet. There's no dying patients over here, which
That's good.
Makes my job a lot easier.
Yeah, I imagine that does that does make your job
that's strange.
easier when there's no
Nurse Goldhorn. You bear a striking resemblance to the figure I was going to introduce, Nurse TSD, who was the president for life of. I had this whole bit of political offices now decided by sub count, and this small time YouTuber managed to catapult himself into getting 100 billion subs by fusing himself with a goat. But hey, we can just put that.
Oh no, I wanted to stay. I wasn't sure
that.
how theme we wanted to stay on. So
I did have a one more riff.
It can be both. He's doing a.
It's kind of an identical twin situation.
PR tour as a nurse to raise money for the next campaign.
What better way to raise money for my seventh term as president of the world?
President of everything.
Yes, this is a very strange way to introduce myself.
Yeah.
Well, all
right, we can probably dispose with a half-cooked bit now.
There's so many podcasts.
I had one good I had one good joke which I'm too attached to throw away, which was that in this world people no longer go and see movies, they go and see 20-minute short films and then 2-hour video essay nitpicks critiques of the short film which play immediately afterwards. But that was always kind of half-baked. Hey, let's do away with this nonsense. Daniel, how's it going? How's stuff going on the YouTube channel Daniel Goldhorn, in case any of our listeners don't recognize you?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast here. And honestly, things have been going pretty well. I'm actually in the middle of putting the final touches on a really big project that I've been working on for about a year and a half. And I've really been enjoying how it's been coming together and can't wait to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So TSD and I have seen early drafts of this, and one of my questions was going to be, how long did this take to put together? Because Jesus, it's a beast.
Yeah, it's like a full-on professional documentary. For those, if any of you haven't seen this already, Daniel made like an hour and 20-minute long full-on documentary about the movie Doogal and its original source material, The Magic Roundabout. And it's like Defunct Land level shit. Like it's not like YouTube documentary. It's just documentary that happens to be on YouTube kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like it's really impressive.
Yeah, honestly, the fact that you described it like that is the biggest compliment you could have given me, because I was inspired to do this, to go this extra mile by Defunct Land, seeing the kind of stuff that he does. And I wanted to do that same level of deep dive for movies.
Yeah.
I think you've accomplished it. It's really impressive.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a fun thing to talk about here because, like, we're kind of, I feel like the way British viewers respond to that video is going to be quite different to the international audience, or rather, I guess, the American audience, because, like, I feel like my experience just watching that draft is probably, like, totally opposite to TSD's, because we probably both recognize different bits of the story.
Yeah. Like, when Daniel first told me about this project, because he was talking to me about it when he was, like, first... I want to say when you were, like, in the midst of researching it, I think is when he first mentioned it to me. But you mentioned the movie Doogal, and I had never seen the movie Doogal, but I did have a DVD when I was a kid. I can't remember what DVD it was, but the DVD had, it was one of those DVDs that had, like, when you first played, it had, like, a bunch of built-in, like, previews for upcoming other movies built into it. And one of those previews was for the Americanized, what I now know to be horrific edit of Doogal, or what it used to, or I guess in its original name being the Magic Roundabout, but what I knew as Doogal, because I remember that because I was watching the video, and when it showed the part with the title card with like the Doogal character jumping up on the words Doogal spelled stupidly, and it like changing the orientation of the letters, I had like had a vivid flashback of like seeing that exact imagery like a million times over with like the words Doogal coming soon like on it. So that was my connection.
Conversely, I didn't even know the film Doogal existed. I feel fairly confident. I'm kind of like 50-60% confident that at some point in my British childhood, I will have seen a DVD of the actual, the British film. I don't remember any of it, but like, you know, when you can kind of remember the edges of something. I think I've got that for the CG version of this property in particular. But little did I know what hellish rabbit hole of, corporate machinations, it was all enmeshed in. If anyone listening to this is doing so at a time when Daniel's Doogal video is out and you haven't seen it, hey, stop listening to this. Go and watch that video. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's just been because, and the thing is that even like with all that I showed there's still some bits that I had to like gloss over and just be like, okay, I can't go down this particular rabbit hole because there's just like even more, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
Like apparently the original Magic Roundabout series got into a little bit of political trouble in the 60s.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
There was one episode that was called like Le Pompons, and that was considered like kind of like a cutesy name for like a cutesy version of Pompidou, who was French president at the time. And I actually I invoked the Reddit hive mind and asked historians like, hey, in between, 99% of people asking questions about World War II, who wants to talk about the Magic Roundabout? And so...
That's some variety, yeah.
And, let's see, I'll try to find it here, but there was a very kind gentleman who answered my question, and he was talking about how the ORTF, like the radio television group at that time, they could be a little overzealous with protecting against, defamatory remarks about the president or whatever, because that's something that they don't have the same kind of free speech that we have in the United States here. And so there was pressure put on
you and
Serge Dano.
I don't know about Pillar and his
sadly,
Orwellian.
If I speak, I am in trouble.
Oh no. But no, it's just a very, and this was the thing was like, do I like dig into this? No, that's the pacing. It's already over an hour long. I need to move on.
Yeah.
And that brings up an interesting point of video making that I feel, a lot of people know about, but like we all know that when you do a video about something, if there's something a guy in the comments knows that you, even if you know it, you didn't put it in the video, he's going to say, hey, you forgot to mention this. Guys, maybe we didn't forget to mention it. Maybe we kept it out to keep you kind of on the narrative roller coaster of the video.
Yes, because like Years and years of being someone who would like info dump on people about everything that was interesting to me has taught me that there are some places where you have to stop before it stops being entertaining to people.
Yeah.
To just keep the pacing. Like if there's supplementary material and people are more interested, obviously answer those questions and redirect them in those things. But if you're just making a finished package like this, you got to keep in important what is important specifically to the story you're telling, and not just go on rabbit holes.
Is that true? Or are we just running interference for this French president 60 years after he finished in office? Is this a psyop? We'll leave that up to you.
And because over the course of this, like I kept finding like more and more stuff. Like in the video, there's something I really wanted to point out where one of the producers of the movie, Trevor Horn, was bandmates with Hans Zimmer.
Yeah. There was like that split-second bit in the documentary. I was like,
was that the compromise? They're just the visual information rather than the, hey, side note.
Yeah, because I do that little interjection where, Paul brings up Trevor Horn, and Kenny's like, Trevor Horn, the same guy who did Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I had written that, and I was like, Trevor Horn, the guy who did Video Killed the Radio Star, the first MTV video to ever air when the channel debuted, who was in a band with Hans Zimmer, that Trevor Horn. and I was editing, he's like, no, I can't do that long.
Yeah. I actually do have a little bit of experience with making documentary. Obviously nothing on this level, like on this amount of research and like this amount of what have you. But when I was in school, I made a couple of documentaries for my documentary filmmaking class, and those are both on my channel actually. But I just did those about like short little anecdotes that could be very easily researched with like a couple of news articles covering the event. And there's still so many rabbit holes that you can fall down. Like I did one about the Cleveland Balloon Fest disaster. I think you might have heard of that or seen the video, I guess, because it's been up for like a year. But
I think I voiced that actually.
You did. That. You had a voice line in that. That
was really fun to be part of.
Yeah, there was like so many. Because it's a very simple story, but there's also different elements of like different political elements about how like Cleveland's United Way was worried about like they needed to raise money and they wanted to do some fundraising, but because they were in some financial trouble, and so that's why they put on that whole thing. But in the end of it, because of how much money like the legal situations cost, because of all the property damage that thing cost, they ended up being a net loss for them. And
oh my god,
it's just amazing like how that kind of stuff happens and how much
they should have done more balloons. I think
that
more balloons would have fixed that.
Yeah.
What was that?
More balloons. Yeah.
Oh my god, just a constant like, you know how like people are like, oh, when Yellowstone erupts, it'll just be like this constant like spew of gas. It's just constant balloons, never ending.
Yeah. It's
you
like
you gotta spend money to make money.
Yeah, it's like how whenever highways get crowded, what you need to do is just always add one more lane. That will always fix it.
One more lane, baby.
Oh, you would do so well in the Florida Department of Transportation. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. No, but on the just before we move from the kind of documentary thing, like, I did a slightly similar thing like a year ago. I tried to do that sort of thing with Wolverine and the X-Men. I even had the experience of talking to someone who worked on it, and that's like maybe like a fifth as in depth, if even that, as Daniel's video. But like, it's interesting the different kind of skill set that you need to do something like that, because a lot of people, I think, maybe watch a video like that the same way they would a more sort of interpretative piece of media video essay, and don't always see that, maybe wouldn't always draw the distinction between, hey, this is a video about a movie, that's a video about a movie. But it's the research, and it's more like you're fitting a puzzle together than you're sort of like painting a picture or something in a way. So I think it is always fun when you see like a creator trying out different things like that, because you kind of see a different side of their channel and their craft. And I just think we've seen that in a cool way with the Doogal video.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
There were a few bits where like there was like where you were talking about like the movie itself, and like I could see like the other kind of other kind of
it's
persona.
like, oh, this is a Daniel Goldhorn video.
Like
yeah.
that's the Daniel Goldhorn I know from before, where he loses his mind over finding Jesus. But like this isn't like a bad thing. Like the difference isn't a bad thing. It's cool seeing. It's like Pillar said. It's cool seeing that different side and seeing that different kind of skill set.
Yeah, I really, because I think this is really the direction I've been wanting to take my videos for a while now. Because I started the channel. Well, actually, so I've been on YouTube off and on with like different names since 2009.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I was making videos at the age of 13. They're terrible. They don't exist anymore.
Honestly, same.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat.
But since then, I've kind of like, I would do some stuff, I'd step away for a bit, do some stuff, step away for a bit. But this is the first time in 2020 when I started this channel, Daniel Goldhorn. It was the first time I really sat down and said, okay, I want to do this like a real strategy, think about, see what I want to do, see if I can make this be something. And I think in the years since then, I've found more and more fulfillment from doing these videos where it takes me longer to make these. So I can't do like every month, release, but I get a lot more satisfaction from it because really what I'm driven by is this curiosity. And because I looked at this movie, I was like, oh, because I knew the story about like Butch Hartman and Harvey Weinstein getting this movie from Europe. And that was kind of what the meat of the video was originally going to be, is that story. And I was like, oh, let me look and see, where this all started. This will probably be like a quick little background about what happened here. And then
it turns into the meat of the video.
Yes, it's like I discovered this unsung animation genius, like the secret animation genius that made some really incredible stuff. You discover the phenomenon of the magic roundabout from 60 years ago. And it really helps to kind of put things into different perspective. And I like that. I like being able to take what I learned, these stories that I found that meant so much to me, and then communicate that to people.
Yeah, it's a different kind of like fulfillment in terms of what you get to do, and with these videos, and what, like, personally, as someone who likes the more of the filmmaking side of things, and part of the reason why I do this is because I'm interested in filmmaking and talking about filmmaking. I like making like review stuff, and it's fun. But it becomes more emotionally and artistically satisfying for me when I get to incorporate some other elements, like that documentary side, or the more like maybe story writing side of an acting side, and what have you. It's just like being able to incorporate all those different elements from different forms of video creation, filmmaking, documentary filmmaking, and mixing those all together, I think, is how you get more variety on this platform, and how you get better content from that. Not better content. That sounds so like, God, it sounds like so corporate, but that's how you get better art, I think.
Yeah, and because obviously I also try to go think about it strategically as well. That's kind of the place we're in as YouTubers, where we have to, because we want to do this because it's fun. Like, if we wanted to do something we didn't enjoy for money, there's any number of jobs out there we can go grab,
It's always a balancing act.
Exactly, because you want to do something that you enjoy, but at the same time, if you want to be able to turn it into something that you can build a living off of, you have to be strategic about it still.
Yeah. And even before that point, like, part of the enjoyment comes from sharing it with other people. And, that enjoyment does grow if you share it with more people. It's not all the cynical business side. That is always a part of it. So it's a funny balancing act, because it's like you've got one of those, you're walking on a tightrope, you're carrying one of those like beams, but you don't know the weight of the thing on either side because it's all kind of obscured with the mystical numbers and algorithm stuff.
Right, like you can have, because you want to do something where you can get that audience, so you can have people to say, hey, here's my thoughts about something, or here's something I want to share with you all, and having people who would say, yes, please give it to us, we want it, that is a very fulfilling thing. And being able to build that on YouTube can be tricky. It requires a lot of patience, but when you're able to put in that patience, when you're able to find the strategies that let you connect with an audience, that is incredibly fulfilling in itself.
Yeah. And I was also going to ask, from the kind of thinking about the kind of strategy of it a little bit. So you said this has taken like over a year, but you've also been releasing other videos in the meantime. And so how do you go about sort of balancing the long-term stuff in the background with the short-term stuff in the foreground?
Actually, I have one of the questions from the Q&A I saved.
Oh, okay. Well, let's put this on the back burner.
Yeah,
so
we'll come back to it. And if you're listening, there'll be timestamps. So if you're hooked on that particular moment, you can just skip to that part in the thing later.
All right, foreshadowing achieved.
There you go.
So there was something I think you wanted to ask Daniel about, though, with another one of his videos, Pillars, because it related to something that you've been going through. If you want to talk about that.
Okay, yeah. So it's been a bit of an exhausting week for me. So right now we're doing this like it's 10:30 my time. I've just come back from the last day of Blast Spring Finals London. If we've got any Counter-Strike enjoyers listening, probably not. But so that's been my weekend. I've also been on the first and second day of that. I was also constantly trying to refresh my emails in the stadium because I was still hearing back trying to hear for sponsor or approval for that the Fire in Space video I recently released, because that wasn't supposed to be the video. It was supposed to be an over the hedge video. But despite, the intro wasn't a joke. I spent the whole week rendering and uploading slightly different cuts to try and bypass YouTube's copyright detection thing. Didn't work. So what I ended up doing, because I'd signed a contract with Raycon that said I had to have a video out on the 15th, and obviously I was thinking, I signed this back, a couple of weeks ago, and all I was working on this whole time was the over the hedge thing. So I was like, oh, no worries, I'll have it done by then. And I had it done, but I couldn't release it. So what this culminated to was after some pretty hectic editing to actually get it done in time, I then spent kind of 3 or 4 days always not able to do anything else, because rendering and uploading took like 30, 40 minutes a pop, but always kind of I was maximizing time. I was getting up early, I was going to bed late to get the maximum amount of re-renders and re-uploads in a day. And then it came to a head on Thursday when I was like, hold on, I've put 20 of these through the machine, and the machine still says no. This probably isn't going to work. So in between doing these renders and uploads, I was also frantically writing and recording the Fire in Space video. And all this got me thinking, it got me thinking about a few things. But one of them was, Jesus Christ, this is horrible. Why? Surely this has happened to more people besides me, where you try and you try and you try, and the machine just keeps saying no, and you don't understand. You try and appeal, you're trying to get around it, and it can't. And then I thought, well, hey, it has happened to someone. Daniel, why don't you tell us the story about Man of Steel?
Yes. So a couple months ago, actually, no, this would have been like 3 or 4 months ago. Time's been going by fast. I released a video about Man of Steel, and I've been working on this for a little bit. This was a quicker video for me. It only took me 7 months to work on this one.
Nice.
And I went through it. This is kind of like a more straightforward movie critique kind of video. So I get it all done up. I'm very proud of it. I got some custom artwork from my artist, Ridian. Shout out to him. It's great. And get it uploaded. And it cannot be played. It is blocked worldwide by Warner Brothers because too much.
Fucking Warner Brothers.
Yes. Oh my God, Warner Brothers. They are one of all the studios to deal with. They are the biggest pain in the ass to work with.
Yeah.
Them and Universal are the big bad too.
Yeah, it's like there was that last year. I did a video. I did this as like a quick video. I actually don't really like this one. I'm probably not going to do one like it again. But I did like a quick, kind of like off the cuff reaction to Fast X, which I thought would be funny because I haven't seen any other Fast and Furious movie. So I thought it'd be funny how lost I was. And when I got it done, I was like, okay, fine. Thank goodness. Quick, easy video. We'll put it up. And I got hit with like 5 different copyright claims because what Universal did is because it got hit with a claim from the master copy of Fast X, and then a copy from official trailer 1, official trailer 2, teaser 1, Spanish trailer.
So it was the same clip like over and over again, just copyrighted by different sources.
Yes,
pretty much.
And
I think when the cops do that, they call it laddering, and it's a crime. They should arrest Warner Brothers. Both of the brothers. They should put them in jail.
arrest David
Wacko.
Zaslav. Like no.
Doc can stay though.
It is a very frustrating thing to have to deal with, to grapple with in our line of YouTube here.
Yeah. You eventually were able to get it public though. Because first what you did was that you split it into 2, and then later you were able to upload the
This
full
is the
thing.
Man of Steel one, not the Fast X.
Yeah,
one,
the Man
right?
of Steel one.
Just for the listeners, yeah.
And I thought of that because Pillar was telling me he was narrating his struggles as he was going through them.
I needed to vent.
But one of the things he told me about was that was interesting was that when he would cut it up into like I want to say like 15 to 20 minute chunks, it was able to pass
it
by.
was like 15-minute chunks. Because I had a really good strategic stroke, which was like, hey, each time it's just giving me one problem zone. So if I do 3 at a time, the process is going to be 3 times faster. I'm going to get to the end. At that point, I didn't realize there wasn't an end, that I was just falling, into the endless swirling vortex of misery and Universal. But yeah, the funny thing was, if you split the video up into 3, it goes through no problem. So the speculation, I think the what I got to with that is maybe there's some sort of provision in like the copyright crawler bots they use where it's like, okay, if it uses more than 30% total of the film in the video, flag it. And obviously a shorter video isn't going to do that because it's only a fraction of the whole. For anyone listening, the reason I didn't go with that in the end with this over the hedge video is because like the structure of the video it doesn't lend itself to a multi-part thing at all, and I'd kind of already made my peace with it not getting a full release, so I was like, I'd rather some people watch this on Patreon and experience it the way I want it to be experienced rather than kind of truncate it and satisfy none of us. But I guess you chose to do the 2-part release, because yours was only 2 parts, mine I think was 3 parts. You chose to do that 2-part release of Man of Steel, and then something else happened after that.
Yeah, so what happened is I did the 2-part release, and what it did, it kind of messed up my channel analytics, actually, I found. Because
oh, God.
the algorithm kind of looks like how your latest video is doing. And so when you release 2 at the exact same time, it kind of threw that off a bit.
Yeah.
And so it was
So like
promoting...
it couldn't decide which one?
Yeah, so it was promoting like part 2 more than part 1.
Which isn't helpful to anyone.
Yeah, and I had always envisioned it as like a 1-part thing anyways, so as I was going, I was like, oh, I have to fix this or I'm not going to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And eventually got to a point where I mangled the footage to a point that was satisfactory enough where the stupid bot did not catch it. Because the thing is, because this isn't the only video Warner Brothers has claimed. My Crimes of Grindelwald video, which, by the way, is also Warner Brothers. I don't make any money off of that. It's still visible, and that's kind of what I care about most. Like, I would rather... Like, if I had to choose, I would rather have a video be available and just not make money from it and have that build my audience, and also just people can see what I wanted to say about it in the form I intended.
Yeah, I've been in a similar spot with videos before. The Hulk video I did with Pillar last year, that kept getting blocked by Universal as well. So it's really just the same two people, same two companies, just popping up over and over again.
Something Professor McGonagall meme, you know. Why is it that whenever there's problems with the YouTube copyright detection system, it's always one of YouTube bastards?
But so I ended up doing the mangling footage thing again because it kept claiming like the same 2 seconds or whatever. It was something ridiculous. Like it literally like 2 seconds of footage just wouldn't get through for some reason. And so I just don't understand like why it's so, because that video, it was just blocking it worldwide based off those 2 seconds of copyrighted footage. It still doesn't make any money. It's still demonetized, but it's fucking ridiculous. And
it's weird also because normally I can mangle my footage and I can get past it because it happens every now and then. You get something claimed and you have to, mangle the footage a bit. But with this over the hedge one, I tried squashing the visuals up a bunch. I even tried doing the thing where you get like kind of transparent animation texture and you put it over all the clips. That did nothing. So I don't know. Maybe they've got anti-mangle AI.
The friend of mine, Connor McDowell, I don't know if either of you know him all that well, but a couple years ago, he made a In the Heights movie review. It was like a 40-minute video essay about it, and it only stayed up for about 12 hours before Warner Brothers manually claimed it. I don't know how they found it because his channel was smaller than mine is currently. And then I actually managed to get a download of the video. I don't know how I did that. I think he might have sent me the file or something. And so every once in a while, I actually uploaded a copy of his video to my channel just to try and see if I could help with the copyright stuff. And it was literally the same situation of just 1 to 2 seconds of one of the scenes kept getting it blocked worldwide. And every now and then I'll just re-upload it. I still have the file. I'll re-upload it every once in a while just to see if it's still the same and it'll still get blocked off those two things. I've never had that happen with any movie by like Disney or like any other company that isn't Universal or Warner Brothers pretty much. It's interesting because Disney is the one that has like the reputation for fucking sending copyright lawyers after these parents who put Spider-Man's face on their kid's grave or whatever. But they're fine with the YouTube copyright system. So
Disney gave me a bit of grief once with my Treasure Planet video, but I appealed. Well, I disputed, and they were like, "Yeah, sound." So, like, I think that's if you are going to do it, that seems the more reasonable route. But I honestly think I think Warner Bros. Has a guy. I think they have a guy whose job it is to find stuff on YouTube and claim it, because the manual claim at a point where it is, wholly unlikely that any big shot or even medium shot would have seen it organically. That's also what happened to my Smiling Friends video. So I think they just have a guy.
And that's
I think they have a guy
too.
who searches stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, 'cause
I think they have a guy. Maybe it's one of the brothers.
Do you think it's Yakko or Wacko? Which one do you think?
I don't know. Wacko, because he can't be right in the head if he's pulling this type of bullshit.
I think David Zaslav, just like every morning he wakes up and is like, oh, what a beautiful day to do more terrible things in. Intern, bring me my 30 videos to strike down today. Got to get things off on the right foot.
Yeah. And then after that, I'll have my morning tea, and then I'll go to Cartoon Network and see what shows I can delete from existence.
Yeah, some people take a walk, some people read a poem, some people do the crossword. He strikes videos, that's what he does. He says, get up and go routine. But this has kind of brought us in a roundabout way to the observation I was going to make. We've kind of done it backwards, but I was going to bring up this is kind of similar, not totally similar. I was watching an FD Signifier video the other day. I can't remember which one exactly, but I think he mentions that a video he'd put out that a lot of people had seen. The end product, the thing that got out, was like quite far, like visually from how it started out. But it had to be changed so much because of all these kind of platform restrictions. So I just I wonder how many videos we've seen on the platform, videos we've really liked, that are like distortions from how they were originally kind of finished. Do you know what I mean? Like, how many kind of director's cuts of videos out there are there that look substantially different to the finished ones?
It's got to be in the hundreds, if not thousands. If like stories like this, if the three of us have like almost a half dozen stories of videos like this, it's got to be like in huge amounts of numbers just from all the amount of people who are uploading videos on this platform.
And we've talked about like claims and stuff and trying to edit around them. Do either of you guys have any videos that you managed to get out after changing, but like you had to kind of sacrifice a part of? Or have you just managed to kind of mangle through?
Sorry, Daniel, do you want to go first?
No, I'm just trying to think, because for the most part, whenever I run into things like this, like when I talk about like Disney, for example, Disney is really good with copyright. Like if they claim you can dispute it, and unless it's like really flagrant, they'll run out the clock or they'll lift their claim. But when it comes to, because I think the most pressing example I can think of would be, my Snowpiercer video. The Weinstein Company was such a pain in the ass with that one. My God. I literally had to take an asset from a different video, edit it, and have it so that it could be like in the corner, faded out. And it was so annoying because I use like the music from the movie, and the music is fine. Usually the music is where they get you.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, the music is fine. There's the visuals, and they just kept claiming. And finally, I was able to get to a spot where they would let me upload the video. And there's a few parts that I was able to leave unmangled, which I'm thankful for, because those are parts I really wanted to highlight and talk about, because it's a great movie that has really interesting themes and it builds things in an interesting way, because it's made by Bong Joon-ho, who is a brilliant filmmaker.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's if you watch that video and it's like it's going into GOATvision and you see my little cartoon graphics fill up most of the screen, that's the reason why.
Yeah. I was looking through my old videos, and I gotta say, I don't think there's ever been like one where I've gotten into a severe director's cut situation, except for my Morbius video. I made in the year of our Lord 2022, following the release of Morbius, I made a video with my brother that was just like it was pretty much like a commentary track of the movie. So this is actually a really funny story, because the Morbius video, I actually was in a similar situation to what Pillar was this week, where I had to like he kept claiming different parts and I had to keep re-uploading and stuff. And so the original video is 23 minutes long, and then I kept recutting for days and days and days, and I had like 20 different cuts or whatever. It had shrunk to like 16 minutes long. Oh, and then God, yeah. And then literally an hour, I'm not kidding, an hour before I was going to post the edited like cut down version that finally wasn't getting blocked worldwide, they released my claim on the original cut.
How nice, how considerate.
And so I released the original cut, and the original cut is now public, but they jerked me around for like 48 hours over this thing.
Yeah.
No, 72 hours, because it was like 3 days. They jerked me around on this, and I had to and I thought that I was coming to peace with the fact that I was going to have to release a much inferior version of the product, and they're just like, you know what, actually, you've been a good boy. You can have this one for free on us. It's just like, thanks.
No, it's horrible seeing the time code go down and down, isn't it? Because that's what was happening with my Over the Hedge video. Of course, I ended up releasing the full one on Patreon, but like it just kept trickling down. It started out as I was bigging it up in the Patreon in the Discord as like, oh yeah, it's a 42+ minute video, and then I couldn't say that anymore because after a few days it crept down to 40 minutes, then 39 minutes. Mm-hmm.
God.
Good times with Universal.
And ever since then, I just every time I'm working on a giant video that has a bunch of copyrighted material, I just upload chunks of it whatever I've got finished up to YouTube just to double check the copyright stuff before I run into big issues. That's what I'm doing with my X-Men video right now. Just like every time I finish a section, I'm just going to upload what I have so far and see if any copyright issues come up, because I can't not deal with that.
Morbius, what a time. You know that movie released like a month after the Russian invasion of Ukraine started? What a jam-packed time for our world.
I'm not sure what to make of this connection.
I don't know.
It was
A lot happened.
Time of great unrest.
What a bad things.
Oh, actually, you want to know one more copyright battle I'm actually still fighting right now?
Sure, one more.
Yeah, go for it.
Round it all out.
The Doogalmentary, actually.
Oh no!
Yeah, so...
Don't say it.
So... The one that I showed you is the third version that I've uploaded online. And both of the previous versions got claimed, but they only got claimed like days after they had been uploaded, which is very strange to me.
Were they unlisted or public?
They were unlisted.
They weren't public.
They were unlisted.
That is so strange.
Yeah, it is. And
that is weird.
And what really gets me is that if you look online, like if you search Magic Roundabout 2005 on YouTube right now, you can find the full movie uploaded. Free to so what I'm hoping is that once I get the final version done, I'm going to upload it, and if they hit me with a claim, I'm going to dispute it, and I think there's probably going to be a good chance that they'll just let it go automatically if they let the full movie exist online anyways.
It's also possible that person might have it be demonetized and they just have it public for like the good of the commonwealth.
Yeah. I mean, you might get the thing where you claim it, because sometimes you dispute it and they uphold the claim, but you can still release it, you just can't monetize it.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah, obviously, because the thing is because at the moment, it's not just demonetized, it's actually blocked worldwide. But what I'm hoping is that the fact that it does exist on YouTube right now, uploaded by someone else, gives me hope that if I dispute it, then it'll just let it exist.
Yeah, because YouTube
and hopefully you can get it monetized.
Famously consistent with enforcing their rules, YouTube.
Does he know? Yeah, no, monetization would be great on that, though, because that's the kind of video. I mean, who knows? Because we've all put out videos that have been great and have gone nowhere. And we've all put out videos that are fine and have done better than expected, right? But that is the kind of video that you want to be monetized, because there is a non-zero chance that goes to the absolute moon. You know, that's like that could be the next Jenny Nicholson 4-hour Star Wars hotel thing. People could be talking about Doogal, you know? People could be talking about Doogal thanks to that video.
I could open up Tumblr the day after it goes on, and there's just like, you know, art drawn of the fucking Tom Thumb movie, and with the or just the like artistic renderings of I don't want to spoil too much of the video for people who haven't seen it, but the dark alley meeting that you described so artistically.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that, you know, I'll be able to get it out there and just have it be totally copyright, not have to worry about those claims. But, you know, it's...
Fingers crossed.
That is the dream.
It's an occupational hazard.
Oh, I just want to clarify here. I just Googled after checking the Morbius release date on my phone. I didn't know that you were saying about Yakko and Wacko, the Warner Brothers. I didn't know they were actual Warner Brothers.
Wait,
I thought it was just a studio name.
You didn't know you didn't know, like I was talking about.
No, I was just going along with it. I was just yes-anding. I was like, oh, Wacko,
you didn't
he
know
must
about
be
the Animaniacs?
not right in the head. No, I knew that the Animaniacs existed as a thing. But I didn't know that these were the Warner Brothers.
So you haven't heard the theme song? It's time for Animaniacs.
Yeah,
the
Animaniacs. Yeah, I've heard that.
And then come
Are
join the Warner
guys
Brothers
that do
and
the
Warner
countries of
Sister
the world?
Dot.
Okay, I've not heard that bit. I've just heard the start of the song and not the end. That's
such a fun show.
The attention span of a man born in 1999 for you. I will tune out 4 bars in.
But yeah, so are we going to ask something, Pillar?
Oh no, I was just setting the record straight about the Warner Brothers.
Okay. You know, and like when it comes down to it with the copyright issue and everything, it's... I feel like
copyright us for singing that.
Oh no.
We actually might.
David Zaslav is going to get this served tomorrow morning.
Yeah. I can't wait to start my morning routine.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's kind of like, unfortunately, this is probably one of the best implementations they could have of the existing legal system, which was kind of built in a world where there wasn't this massive user-generated content.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like back in the day, it was like, oh, yeah, we'll give copyright holders a lot of power to enforce this, because if you found it, it was usually some other studio that has put so much out there. Then you're like, no, wait, stop that right now. I'm going to write such an angry letter to my lawyer, and we're going to put a stop to this, you hear? Nowadays, you know, that same attitude has resulted in something where, you know, we have to go up against these massive conglomerates if we want to talk about their movies and everything. And while there's like there is that kind of gray area of fair use, that framework to operate in, it kind of ultimately comes down to who has the army of lawyers and who doesn't.
And who sees this as good for their PR and who doesn't. Like most game companies don't enforce copyright at all of Let's Play footage because they know it's like good public PR for their games usually. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got like every company out of Japan. Like every company in Japan. Because I think it's, to be fair to them, I think their copyright system is just a lot more strict than it is in the US, but still, whatever.
Somewhere in a sleepy rural Midwestern American town, a 7-year-old girl is making up a story in her head where Mario and Sonic meet, and Nintendo's lawyers are already on the way. You know, they're in the jet. They're on the way. They're gonna slam her door down.
You know, I was talking about like, you know, PR and everything. I'm just gonna point this out that when I made a video talking about Squid Game, Netflix was totally chill with me using the footage. Like they didn't care, didn't have a single problem with that. But when I'm making a video talking about Rebel Moon Part 2, suddenly that video is not allowed to exist.
Rebel Moon. Well, on that cheery note,
you heard it first. Snyder is the architect of all our copyright woes. I'll say it, even if these two are too afraid to take on the record.
That's very particularly brave of you in Britain, where it is Orwellian 1984.
God.
But do we want to...
Editor's note. Hi, I'm Pillar of Garbage. I officially retract my previous comment. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh no, the slap law came for him.
Yeah. They really expedited the process on that one. Record time.
Actually, speaking of slander and Zack Snyder, my next big project I've already been thinking about, because I've been talking about... Well, first of all, I'm going to do some smaller videos. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Who are you trying to convince her? Us or you?
But my next big project, and I think I was actually talking to you this before about this pillar. I want to do a big deep dive on 300.
Oh, yeah.
And because I have a script drafted for that. It's been sitting in my drive for like 2 years because I just got distracted with everything else. And I would like to resurrect that and get that going after a vacation.
Yeah.
Yes. A much needed vacation.
I'm coming back from a vacation, and sometimes I feel like I need a vacation already. I haven't even put out the video yet.
No.
To be fair, you've bitten off a big bite for your first go back at the apple.
But to be fair, this is like probably the only time I'm going to have an opportunity like this until I start doing this full time in some capacity.
Yeah.
Anyway, do we want to move on to comment corner?
We can go to comment corner.
You're right fucking shit, you are.
Well, technically
technically that isn't true. They can
So you see the British are analysing our American characters?
I'm sorry, but I'm offended by that content warning. I don't think we should
sorry,
include
but I'm
him for the
offended
rest
by
of
it.
them like he is in
Something
political.
like
I know they're not racist because I've been watching them for years.
Asian, baby.
Channel name checks out.
It's Comment Corner.
So one of the things, and this actually kind of ties into something I'm going to be doing next. So one of the things I'd like to do with my channel is, in between like my movie reviews and deep dives and everything, I'd like to talk more about games, actually.
Oh, yeah.
You're a Suzerain enjoyer, aren't you?
Yes.
Daniel Goldhorn, famous Suzerain enjoyer.
Like,
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
You joke, but in the subreddits, like I'll like post like a joke or make a comment, and people will say, "Oh my god, I saw your video on it. You made me buy the
Nice.
game."
That's kind of me. I watched your video, and that's what made me buy the game. I haven't gotten the
Yes.
DLC, but I've been wanting to. I even got my dad into it too. He's enjoying it.
Yes. What path is he going down? I have to know.
I have no fucking clue. He's just told me that he likes it, and that's about it.
So this is a very nice comment I got recently. This was on because I reviewed Kingdom of Ritzia, the DLC they put out to it. It's like, so it was Dave TTA Dave 3990 said, "Your original video led me to buy Suzerain, a decision I did not regret. So thank you, and I'll definitely get Ritzia." And
That's
I just really appreciate that. I'm in a place now where people, value my opinions, and that's something that's, I really hope that I can continue to earn that trust from everybody. I'm not even saying this as like, oh, I'm going to be different. I'm not going to talk about the popular games. Legitimately, I just like the single player, smaller games a bit more than your competitive battle pass games.
Yeah, you don't need to convince me. My next big project after my X-Men video is gonna be some form of video essay about Slay the Princess, which is a game I guarantee almost none of you have heard of if I did it without me mentioning it before.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have heard of it, but only from you.
Yeah, for those of you who are listening, we're in Discord right now. My profile picture is from the game, so.
Yeah, I actually have that on my queue as well. I want to play that. My next couple videos, because I want to talk about Papers, Please, first of all.
Classic.
Just talk about that game a little bit. Yeah, classic. I want to talk about Zootopia. I actually have a collab there that's been in the works for a little bit. They've been waiting for me to finish the Doogalmentary very patiently. I appreciate that. And then I want to talk about this little game. You probably haven't heard of it. It's called Undertale.
No, I don't think I have.
Interesting.
It's a little obscure. I don't think anybody's ever heard of it.
Seems a bit under the
Yeah, I've not
radar.
heard of it. Sounds like the kind of game that people are going to respond to sensibly.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there's only going to be cool discussions about it.
Yeah, it'll be very, very chill. But in all honesty, it's like if things go crazy there, I don't know if you've seen the comments section on my Has-Been Hotel video.
Yeah. When you were making that video, I was reading because you had me look over your script when you made it.
Yes, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it was fun. I enjoyed doing that, and I you were criticizing the show, but it was some of the most mild criticism I had seen of the show, ever. And I already knew you were going to get shit for it because no matter what you say about that show, someone is going to get upset at you about it because something about it just invokes really strong feelings in people. It's either if you mention anything vaguely positive, there's someone who will yell at you for saying oh, that's the worst fucking show ever made. And if you say something vaguely negative, it's this show saved me from debt and saved my dog. How dare you? And it's fascinating to me because, in my opinion, it's just fine. It's just an okay show. And
it's the Taylor Swift effect, right?
It's the Taylor Swift effect, yeah.
It's the Taylor Swift effect. Something that's fine, all right, if that's your kind of thing. And people will die on that hill. People will kill each other on that hill, and they will paint the hill with their gore and their vomit and bile. Oh man, guys, she's fine. She's got some okay songs.
This got
Sorry.
really visceral.
Oh my god.
Sorry, I've got.
Anyway.
I think there was. Yeah.
Are you?
I don't want to go to my Taylor Swift place.
Are you both old enough to remember when My Little Pony first hit the internet scene?
I can't.
I was around.
Okay.
I wasn't old enough to fully know what was going on, but I was taking it in. I was seeing the kind of the pitched battles. I was kind of I was in awe.
So TSD, to give you some context, when
I heard tell of it. I heard tell of.
You could not go on any website without seeing ponies. You go to any forum, and there would be ponies there. It got to you could go to Harbor Freight Tools customer support, and people would be reacting to the representatives with pony pictures or something. It was everywhere. To the point to something I don't think I've ever seen a similar effect since then. Part of that is because the internet has grown and spread out so much, but it's kind of compartmentalized a bit more. But yeah, it was everywhere.
Yeah, surely there's chambers of the internet where people are still kind of that sort of gleefully intense about My Little Pony, but the doors have closed, so they're just in there with with the other bronies. Just go, yeah.
I love that
what a room.
It's funny to me that the reputation for My Little Pony is that way, because it's a show that was originally made for 7-year-old girls in the Midwest, and and obviously that's not to say that anyone else can't enjoy it, but it's just so funny that the other side of the online fandom has encapsulated the public perception of it so much that that's thought of as the general target audience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
someone says, I like My Little Pony. You do not picture a 7-year-old girl.
Usually not.
And that's fine. You do you. It's just, one of those funny things that's happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's
the world's a crazy place.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be a furry or something. Could you imagine that?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, boy.
I don't know if I can ever really talk to someone who's a furry, especially not if they're related to any farm animals.
I know, right? That'd just be be cringe. Let me tell you a little bit.
Farm animals are famously the filthiest of all animals.
Yeah.
Is there animal racism yet, or did I just invent that?
I would be surprised if you had invented it.
Have you heard of Zootopia?
I haven't seen Zootopia, actually.
Oh,
I guess, yeah.
Well, you gotta get ready, because the sequel's coming out next year.
Is it really?
I'm aware of Zootopia, though, because of something I'll term the Zootopia effect, which is whenever there's anthropomorphic animals, you as a general internet user become familiar with the project with the anthropomorphic animals, because unseemly variations on those anthropomorphic animals often break containment, let's say.
Yeah.
It becomes a meme very quickly.
Let's leave it there. Yeah.
I will say the most recent version of Zootopia on culture that I've really liked is the weird merging of Zootopia and Wojaks. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna see if I can find this image. There's this image that has been haunting me. That's just of the main couple from Zootopia. For those of you who haven't seen Zootopia, it's between a couple. It's a fox and a rabbit, and so they have a kid in this fan art, and the rabbit's dad has a shirt that says "I love my hybrid grandson." It's so fucking ridiculous. I need to. Just saying that doesn't describe half of what is fascinating to me about this image. So if you're watching the video version of this on YouTube or on Spotify, I'll put an image on the screen right now, and I will send it to you guys in the group chat as well. It should be sent.
Oh no.
It's so odd.
Oh. How do I delete
It's not
someone
even
else's
like-
post on Discord?
Yeah, it's like I've seen worse pictures, obviously, but it's just you ever see a picture and you just think, I don't like what I'm looking at. It's just one of those, you know.
This has been haunting me for weeks. Ever since I first saw it, I just can't get it out of my brain.
It's like the worst part is that you don't know if it was made ironically.
Yeah.
I love how muscular Nick the fox is.
Oh no.
He's jacked. Yeah, he's been getting them
He's
gains.
also like 2 feet
kinda
taller than
yoked.
everyone else.
So anyways, Dave TTA Dave's comment was very nice. Thank you, Dave.
No, it was. Yeah, I think
it was really nice.
we use this segment to bring up kind of silly, kind of strange comments often. But I think we should bring in more pleasant ones, because that was a nice change of pace.
Yeah. Going back to that pace though, I have one.
Okay.
So I've been. It's always been the same song and dance where I'm not uploading videos right now, so I don't really get a lot of recent comments. So I've just been going through my old ones, and I decided that I have not been actually. I have a whole nother well that I could be going through, which is my second channel's comments, because I have a couple of videos that got a lot of views on there. I had one video that got 8,000 views. But it got deleted because it was a re-upload of James Somerton's apology video, and he manually struck it. So I found out he was alive before everyone else did.
Nice.
But another video that I posted on that channel was about the Percy Jackson show. And the reason I posted that video is because the Percy Jackson show isn't perfect. It's honestly kind of like meh show-wise, but it is. But the thing that concerned me was that people were getting really, really nasty about it, like online, because people are wont to do with any kind of fandom, it seems. And so I made a video that was called "I'm Worried About the Percy Jackson Show," and my point of that video is that I wasn't so much worried about the show; I was worried about the fandom. But I got this comment from it, who I think was just someone just purely reacting to the title. Jeffwid136 says, "Finally, an honest review of the Percy Jackson show that wasn't paid by Disney hired PR creators."
Yeah, you nailed it, Jeff. Good job.
Because the video wasn't a review of the show. It was just...
It really wasn't, yeah. But the thing I wanted to bring up with this is not only is it's funny that this person just reacted to the title and assumed that I was just hating on the show because of whatever, I guess. But it's Pillar, you've experienced this a lot, obviously. I don't know if you've come across this at all, Daniel, but there seems to be a certain subsect of the internet that is convinced that people online who talk about, like, a certain percentage of creators online who talk about Disney in any kind of positive way are paid off to do so.
Yeah, I initially thought that I didn't think they were serious to start with, but I think some of them are, and it's so strange. Like, what kind of warped, twisted world do you live in where you think it's remotely feasible or even a good idea for a company like Disney to individually pay for like thousands of small YouTubers to specific things? Like, everyone talks about the reason we know the moon landing wasn't faked was because the amount of people that would have had to be involved with that, it would have leaked, right? And it's the same thing for this. Like, it's not just some YouTubers saying stuff. Like, thousands of YouTubers, thousands of people in Disney would have to be, doing contracts, sending the money. Accountants would have to be involved. Like, you would know if there was this. If every time someone liked something put out by a studio, it was inauthentic, you would know, because the amount of effort that would take, that would be a not insignificant portion of the country's GDP. So let's just set that on the side. Let's do away with that notion, because, and also you can tell it's not real because, guys, if we were being paid by Disney to put out these videos, we would put out fewer videos and they would be longer because we would have money and then we wouldn't have to make so many videos.
And, like, to be clear, there are creators that are paid by Disney, but there are people who, like, get paid trips to go to the parks, you know? Like they're people who
Yeah.
like go to the movie premieres and they like have like this,
And they
their
have to
expenses
disclose
all
it.
secures. And like they have disclosures. But like
If you don't disclose it, you get in a heap of trouble.
they're not like the payment isn't like here's $100,000, say that Wish is good or whatever. It's like here's
It's not even
money.
say that Wish is good. It's like in this case, it's here's $100,000. Say that the Percy Jackson show's all right, I suppose, but we should talk about it in a different way. Like what?
But like it's the expenses paid in like they're paid in the experience and they're paid in like the accommodations and you know the hotel trip, and like there's probably some amount of payment that's like just straight up payment involved, but like it's this whole other thing.
And I think what it does come from kind of like with a lot of these like kind of like conspiracies, there is a certain grain of truth that just gets magnified and grown into a completely wrong direction. Because even when it comes to like media criticism, things like that, over the 2010s, you had the development of this, like this, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like a symbiotic industry where, you know, they would make these pop culture movies and then Screen Rant would talk about, like, there's this whole little umbrella and everything where they would talk about, they'd be like, oh, look at how great the movie's going to be and everything, all this kind of stuff, to kind of get people hyped up to see it. And it grew.
It worked for both parties, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, because it grew from, you know, people who were nerds, you know, I say that with lots of positive connotation. I'm a nerd myself, I would like to say. I did a 75-minute long video about Doogal. I like to think I'm a nerd. Who would write about upcoming movies or speculations and everything and get other people really hyped up. And so an industry came up about trying to replicate that for a general audience. And while you don't get paid in like necessarily like park experiences, there is this kind of expectation where, oh, if you're a big enough critic, you can come to the premiere of Star Wars Episode 9. And while there isn't like, it's not something like say good things about it and you get paid, there is this unspoken understanding of if you say bad things about the movie, we won't invite you to the next premiere. And that's not just, you know, personal fun and everything. That could mean, oh, your publication doesn't get that premiere access. So you're going to release your review a day after your rivals get to see the movie. So there is that kind of thing there where people want to, you know, might want to posture themselves to look good for the company so that way they can get favorable kind of a thing, favorable treatment. And it's not this big evil, you know, it's like, you know, when it comes to these like conspiracies and everything, there's not this big evil, you know, Bob Iger isn't pulling the strings or anything. It's just, you know, very simple economic. These are the way that things are. This is the way things are. And these are the choices people are going to make based on those situations.
Yeah.
Also, though, and I don't want to say that isn't a factor, but there is a very real way. I think it would be remiss to leave this out. In the past sort of 5 years specifically, that a kind of inverse incentive structure to that has risen, where it is, if, you know, 10 years ago, the best way to profit off that kind of shadow industry of people trying to recreate that effect for themselves was to be effusively positive. But now, the easiest way to get kind of the rewards for that sort of thing is often to be extremely hyperbolically negative around the very same products of the same studios. So there is that truth to it, but there's also the other side of the coin, which is kind of, you know, I would argue, outstripping the other side of the coin in the 2020s. I think that's what we've seen.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pendulum swing, isn't it?
Yeah,
because I specifically named up like, you know, Screamer, like Collider was a big one. Now I don't know if you've seen Collider's channel recently. They can't break 1,000 views on a video.
Yeah, I was going to say I have not seen Collider's channel recently.
It is like there's been that kind of collapse there. Whereas the new thing now is people, like you said, being so overwhelmingly negative, and you know, being part of that big mob is something that makes a lot of people feel good. It doesn't make me feel good.
I think it's interesting a thing to look at in terms of especially with like talking about like mainstream like Disney products. Mainstream Disney products is usually how it goes. It's fascinating because even though I was younger during the 2010s, I still felt this shift. It was fascinating to see how the general culture kind of flipped somewhere in like 2018 to like 2021 era.
It was The Last Jedi. That was the catalyst.
It was
It was Ghostbusters and The Last Jedi as a result of Gamergate.
It really does all come down to that. But there's just this general shift of like, oh well, these things. The general opinion is that these things are bad, and when there isn't really that much of a shift in quality, like
there isn't this there no.
I think that I understand stuff like Marvel fatigue and stuff, especially since Marvel pushed so much stuff out during like from 2021 to 2023. They've slowed down this year a little bit, but it's easy to get tired of that. But with stuff like it's like a combination of this like culture flip and also the fact that Disney had Disney Plus, and so they wanted to start pushing more IP stuff to get people to subscribe to Disney Plus and make more money off of that. It's just fascinating to see how Disney was generally seen as like a net good in terms of culture and entertainment like 10 years ago by the general public at least, and then that shift has already happened, and so that even now when you talk to people who are like very general public, aren't involved in like movie commentary or movie criticism spheres, like if when I was in college I would just hear people talking about like Marvel or Disney in this way, in this like a very critical cultural sense, in a way that I would not hear random people in public talking about outside of just like internet forums, 5-10 years ago.
Yeah. And I think that because I think like The Last Jedi and the reaction to that was kind of like the beginning of the wave cresting. I think that was more 2019 because that's when Endgame came out. And people liked Endgame. I liked Endgame. It's a big thing. People really liked it. And then we found out, oh, there's more. The story's not ending.
It kind of comes to a crescendo and then keeps going. And it's weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of streams that overlap in that 2017 through kind of 2020-ish period.
Yeah. There
was also the Rise of Skywalker too.
Oh god, yeah.
It's like if episode 9. Not to get into Star Wars, it'll be, but I feel like if episode 9
you already mentioned The Last Jedi, we're already in too deep.
Oh no, that's true. But like Last Jedi, for whatever flaws that it had, if they had ran with it and The Rise of Skywalker had been solid, we would be talking about the whole sequel trilogy and Disney Star Wars very differently.
I think
100%
so.
agree.
I mean, think about the prequels. Like, if someone says to me there are fewer like kind of technical flaws in the prequels, there are, they're technically better than say The Last Jedi or even The Force Awakens, which I'm not super high on. I'm kind of, I think it's all right. If someone says that the prequels are like better films on any level, I will not hear what they have to say because I'm on a different wavelength entirely. Like I think there's great ideas in them and there's great moments, but I think those are bad films. I like them, but I think they're bad films. But why they work in spite of often being bad is because they're unified, right? They're unified and they commit to a vision, even if there are kind of persistent flaws in how that vision is executed and communicated. That's my opinion, right?
They feel like a unified product.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some great highs in the sequel trilogy, and I dearly love parts of them, particularly The Last Jedi, but there are great bits in all of the films, I think. But because you watch them and you just see it swerve left and right. You just see them regret kind of trying something and then swerving to try and appease. And it's like, if you don't have faith in this, if you're not taking this seriously, how do you expect anyone to? And even if all of those films individually are better than prequels films, the prequels are a better and more successul project because of that Kamel.
Like the prequels,
we talked about Star Wars. Someone was always going to vent. This time it was me.
Yeah, like the prequels, like for all their flaws, and they have flaws.
Yeah, they have flaws.
But for all their flaws, they cross the finish line and with like a big finish, like with a big swash of
Yeah.
like the Revenge of the Sith is like a jump across the finish
good.
line and a bow
Ish.
kind of, whereas the
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker is like you change course and you
Carried
edge
off the
around.
race course on a stretcher.
Yeah, and then you trip over and like crack your head on the like a minute,
Yeah.
like a foot before the finish line. And so because of recency bias, I think part of it is recency bias. The last movie in the prequel trilogy is the best one. Like, I don't think there's any contesting that. Like, the Revenge of the Sith is the best prequel, and Rise of Skywalker is the worst sequel, and they're both the endings of those things. So they're kind of the impression a lot of people have of those movies, especially since a lot of people
that's
just
a good point.
a lot of people just kind of watch them once and they'll like rewatch the originals. And that's why the originals have such varied opinions on them, is because people are constantly watching and rewatching them. But for a lot of people, the prequels and sequels are kind of things they just kind of watch once, and then they go back to quote unquote real Star Wars. So that's just my little fan theory.
I will say, like, because talking about like pop culture in 2019 as well, there's one other thing that I think that possibly even more than those, kind of triggered this kind of pop culture collapse. Game of Thrones. Ending of Game of Thrones.
Interesting.
Because my friend Reynard, you can see him on like other podcasts I do. He shows up in some of my videos. He's in the Doogalmentary.
Oh yeah, he's Foxman.
Yeah, little Foxman. And he was really into Game of Thrones. And for a few weeks, every week I would wake up to this new this new string of messages of just fury and betrayal from every time a new episode was released from season 8. And like that was like such this big pillar of pop culture, and in one season it had just demolished. Like season 7 was kind of starting to slip, but in the last one it just all fell apart. And I think
maybe part of this is geographic. I don't think it had quite that level of impact over here, but I think it's an interesting point about the way that something people have faith in as like a pillar of how to do a story right. It's like a kind of shocking example that the wheels can fall off, and it's not. It's for kind of boring reasons rather than, it's not like someone's come in and got the writer's room. It's just because it's hard to do something well for a long period of time. And maybe that was a bit of a rude awakening.
Apparently there was some behind the scenes stuff with like the
I heard they wanted out or something.
Like they wanted to finish the show so that they could work on Star Wars, actually.
Yeah, but it's not like the studio booted them and brought some new guys in. It's just it's almost a good reminder that things are made by people at the end of the day, and people aren't always going to remain kind of static versions of themselves.
But yeah, so there's just this big, there has been that shift, because then also after 2019, there was 2020, and the less said about that, the better.
I don't really remember that. I don't really remember anything in particular happening.
What was 2020?
Oh my god, that
wasn't it like a reverse leap year? Didn't 2019 end and then suddenly it was like 2022 midway through it?
I think
isn't that what happened for you guys?
Yeah. It's okay, Pillar. It's okay.
He's like getting agitated in his hospital bed. We need to calm him down.
I need the better help doctor to come over here and give me some more needles.
Hold on, I got something better than that. You see these horns? Bonk!
Oh! I drift gently back to sleep.
There we go.
All right, I've got a comment. Do you guys want to hear my comment?
Yeah.
I will. Okay, bear with. I need to put it in the Discord chat. This is, I think, I've gone back to the old kind of the tried and true contours of this segment. This took me a few tries to kind of pass. This is on my recent Star Wars video, so set yourself up for that. It's from M Kincaid 7103. M Kincaid says, "If you're going to brag, lie, and try to force your activism for a mythical modern audience, you have to go all in. Swapping races, genders, and canon are not enough. A hypothetical modern audience would not only look and have different beliefs, they would and are, in this case, considerably more educated about space. Most importantly, if you make it crystal clear that this is no longer George's Star Wars, you lose all rights to fall back on Lucas did it. He had a vision that he adapted to space with the knowledge of what special effects excite the average moviegoer. You have completely and publicly divorced yourself from what Star Wars was. Now, you have to live with the consequences.
The consequences.
Guys, do either of you have any idea what this means?
I unfortunately think I understand it.
Okay.
So you know how every single anti-woke Star Wars thing is always like they're destroying George Lucas's vision, they hate George Lucas's vision, they're blah 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 blah. I think that this guy has literally got it in his head that Disney's plan is to say, we don't want to do George Lucas's vision anymore. We've decided that the original trilogy is bad and everything about it that it stood for is bad. We're doing it our own way. This is like the logic that we're going off of. And so by that logic, if you try to find explanations for why something doesn't work in this show, and you rely on an explanation for why it worked in the Lucas version, then you can't go with that because you're relying on a project that you in this scenario publicly disavowed as what you weren't going to do anymore. Obviously, that's not what Disney are doing. Because they're a corporation that wants to make money, and Star Wars made money, so they want to do Star Wars. But I guess the idea that Disney is somehow spitting on George Lucas's legacy or whatever, even though, and I guess is their logic is just if you don't do it, if you're going to destroy George Lucas's legacy, you can't rely on George Lucas's legacy at all for your show.
Yeah, I kind of got the sense it was half directed at me as well. I don't know if that comes through. I don't know if I'm kind of reading that into it, but I felt almost like it was trying to gotcha, because my video obviously says, not in the same exact context, but fire in space is visible in Star Wars since forever, and we can read fire in space as style over kind of logic.
If you're not listening, if anyone's listening to this in the future and no one cares about this anymore, which they hopefully is the case, what Pillar's video was about was how when the Acolyte first dropped, there was a moment in the first episode where the main character is trying to put out a fire on a spaceship, and people lost their shit because you can't have fire in space. You can't have fire in space. There's no oxygen. Even though throughout history, Star Wars' history, there's always been explosions in space with fire, and yeah, and
there's also just been burning fire on spaceships on the outside. But yeah, I also by the by, and I might bring this up in a future video if I do another Acolyte video, the amount of you could fill an entire podcast of Comment Corner from the comment section of this video, and it's been out a day. It's kind of telling. There's this tactic called sea lioning, which is I learned this term recently and I quite like it. It's when if you're trying to discuss something online and the other guy, you're trying to talk about a point, but the other person's like, oh, but what about this? Oh, what about this? What do you mean by this? And they just barrage you with questions that are beside the point. There's a sea lioning of nitpicking going on with the Acolyte because they can moan about fire in space. You can make a video explaining why fire in space has precedent, but also why that moaning misses the point that fire in space previously has signified. And they will just, without skipping a beat, start talking about burning rocks in a third episode. And it's kind of a never-ending well.
I think that Daniel, you could have an interesting perspective here because you're someone who, as far as I know, you haven't watched The Acolyte at all. I don't know if you intend on watching it. But would it surprise you to learn that this show, which stars mostly people of color and women, and is a Star Wars show, and is also happens to be the most review bombed show Star Wars has ever project I think that Star Wars has ever had? Would it surprise you to know that this point of criticism has been the biggest point of criticism rather than outside any actual structural issues?
Honestly, it doesn't really surprise me because this is the same kind of a thing where when people don't like something, it can become very easy to latch onto superficial details and say that's why it's bad. We were talking earlier about Last Jedi and everything, and while I overall do enjoy the movie, there are things about it that aren't quite great. You know, it's like the pacing's a little weird. There's 2 climaxes. Yeah. Some of the plot threads are a lot better than the others. They have like a bit more heft to them, a bit more weight. It's not because Leia can use the Force when she's frozen in space, you know? Like that's like a very superficial thing that if the and people latch onto that because it's an easy thing to put in a video. It's an easy thing to put a picture of and say, isn't this so weird? This is the reason that it's bad. And I think with when it comes to the Acolyte, because I've heard some different things about it. I've heard a lot of people say it's great. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like it because they don't think the story and the characters are strong. I've heard a lot of people say they don't like it because it features women and non-white people. And I think that, you know, like, again, I haven't seen it myself, so I can't really say any particular opinion one way or the other. But I feel like hyperfixating on fire and space as a criticism of why the show is bad either belies someone who is struggling to articulate why they don't like it, or someone who knows exactly why they don't like it, but if they say it out loud, then they're going to give away that they're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And again, that's not to say that anybody who doesn't like the show is a piece of shit, obviously. Like, there's creators that I've seen that I respect that say they don't like it, and that's fine. Everybody can like or dislike whatever they want. But I feel like the people who like it for reasons that involve certain groups existing that they have to see, they have to dress up their criticisms with these superficial things.
Yeah, that is true. But I would also just tag on the end there. I think you're seeing a little less of that disguising with the general reception to the Acolyte than you did, say, with Kenobi and the Moses Ingram stuff. Like, it's not been a sea change. It's not seismic. But and TSD, you've been paying a bit more attention to the reception, so I wonder if you can kind of echo this, or if you've got a different sense. But it does feel like people are, you know, the out and out bigots. More of them feel comfortable just saying woman bad, black lesbian witches bad than they might have done a few years ago. So I think, you know, from my perspective, that's been a pretty not great thing to see.
Yeah. So you will see this a lot, especially with the most recent episode that came out. As of time of recording, the most recent episode that just came out was episode 3. That episode is an extended flashback sequence, which actually features a YouTuber, Abigail Thorne, aka PhilosophyTube, in a speaking role, which is pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't spot her.
But she's one of the witches. But
okay.
There's
watch it.
There's you reveal that the main character as a young girl and her twin sister. Spoilers, she has a twin sister, but that's like revealed in the first episode. So. But her and her twin sister were raised by this group of technically dark side witches, and they were conceived by what's implied to be this hasn't been outright confirmed, but it's been implied that they were conceived by one witch using the Force to like magically impregnate another witch, similar to how Anakin in the prequel trilogy was a immaculate conception of the Force, but not exactly the same, because there was another Force user who was directly doing it. And I guess according to some,
and this is the thing a lot of people are saying is law breaking, right?
Yeah, that's because like people are saying like, oh, you're saying these people are these 2 random girls are the same as Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one. And no, they're not saying that. But there's this but there's also just this ire, this like very, very limited ire of like, how dare you do this thing that only was like a white blonde chosen ones scenario beforehand, and now give it to these black women
of color.
And and also like people saying it's like the worst thing that Star Wars has ever made, this particular show, and I can't say that I don't think that a non-zero amount of those people are just upset because they're prominently feature black lesbians. So,
and I just want to tag this on here also because in case I don't end up making a big The Acolyte video, but if I do, this is going to be in it. You would never see this shit from Elder Scrolls fans. Like, I'm just going to... Morrowind is a really good game, and one of the reasons it's really good is because it does precisely what I think The Acolyte is starting to do, which is that it kind of it takes apart the idea of the idea of like a chosen one prophecy, and it asks like, who is the idea of a chosen one valuable to? And you realize, spoilers for Morrowind, spoilers for a 20-year-old game, your character is. Turns out you're like the reincarnation of some ancient hero, right? You're the Nerevarine. But it turns out midway through that a bunch of people have been told they're the Nerevarine throughout history because obviously people have wanted to tell them they're the Nerevarine, and it's this kind of situation where passing the trials that are written in some prophecy means you're the Nerevarine, but you are only recognized as this reincarnated chosen figure because people want to recognize you as this. So it's like, if I do make this video, I'm gonna do a more kind of sustained comparison, but it's like, it doesn't break law that someone else is conceived in a vaguely similar way to how the chosen one was, right? It just makes you ask, who the heck is saying he's the chosen one anyway? You know, isn't that a question? Isn't that a really interesting question? Isn't that probably the most interesting question a Star Wars project has asked in decades?
Yeah, like the whole conceit of this show so far seems to be like, can you really trust the Jedi as an institution? Which is really funny to me from people who will tout the prequels
are so
horns.
great. Yeah,
the prequels
yeah,
are
it's
prequels
like, bro.
about like how the prequels are all about how like the Jedi institution is corrupt or is ineffectual or whatever. And like, I agree, that's interesting to explore. So why are you upset when a show is actually fucking exploring it?
Oh, I do have I've got a great answer. I need to run to my bookshelf and find a book. I will be back in 1 second.
But yeah, sorry, we kind of turned this into a Star Wars episode, Daniel.
That's all right. I've just been over here thinking about Krellman.
Yeah? I can't say I'm familiar with that.
Krellman, the most iconic character in Star Wars. He's the guy that has a volcano for a head in the holiday special, and he drinks by pouring things in his skull.
Oh, the holiday special. I have seen...
All right, I can't find my book.
I've seen 40 minutes of the holiday special, and I cannot remember a single thing that happens in it.
Taylor, I'm glad you're back. We're talking about the greatest character of Star Wars, Krellman.
Oh no, I've got wireless headphones. I'm on board the Krellman train. I never got off it. I will say my favorite pointless background Star Wars character is Lobot.
Wireless
you guys know about Lobot?
Are these wireless headphones your Raycon wireless headphones?
No, these are my computer headphones. I use my Raycon everyday earbuds when I'm going out into the world. But we will talk about Raycon. I want to do a sponsorship episode, and I want to get really, really into Raycon in that episode. So I think, yeah, I will become the Raycon. I will go inside someone's ear. I will just kind of sit there, you know? But do you guys know about Lobot?
I do know Lobot, actually. I only know him because...
He's good. I like Lobot.
Yeah, I only know him because like he's referenced as like... he's like the obscure character that people reference. It's either Lobot or Bosk that people reference.
Oh, I didn't know he had a whole kind of subculture. Okay, that's interesting. I was onto something with my Lobot pick then.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say though, I'll keep this short, but basically, and I can't find my copy of Bart's Mythologies, so this is going to be from memory. But hey, if you guys listening and are interested, you can look this up. It's part of Roland Barthes' book, Mythologies. He has a section in it where there's the idea that it's kind of permissible to do a light critique of something, even if that critique exposes a real issue, if it's kind of if the critique isn't the main body of something, if it's kind of peripheral, like you can kind of point out, hey, there's a problem with to use an example which springs to mind. I think he gives it in the book. I don't want to offend anyone if you guys are listening to this are Catholic, but I think an example is, hey, there's sometimes a problem with abuse institutionally in the Catholic Church. But if you say that, and if saying that is your point, then depending on how you kind of frame that, implied in that critique can be, but hey, it's all right because we know there's a problem. And doing that kind of reinforces the structure, because it's like you're saying, hey, it's not above critique, we know there's a problem, and then you kind of let it slide. And I think there's maybe an element of that to the prequels. Like, people see the prequels and they see the way it kind of questions the Jedi as an institution, but it doesn't double down on it textually to the point that it remains just this, I guess the Jedi weren't perfect, but they were good, and the Acolyte doing that is bringing it into the foreground, and that's when it becomes uncomfortable to watch for the people who aren't sort of on board for the kind of deconstructive side of things.
Yeah, like the criticism in the prequels is a lot more implicit, and it's honestly more focused on like the Republic being criticized rather than the Jedi institution itself. Yeah. Which is Anyway, not to get too in the weeds of Star Wars than we already have, because we're starting.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. We need to move on.
We probably should move on to Q&A. But like this, it's such an interesting avenue to go down. Just seeing all this, there's so much to talk about here, and I really hope that the discussion environment around the Acolyte becomes a lot less like heated at some point, because I'd love to like talk about it without having to worry about people just jumping down your throat for daring to mention a positive quality about it.
Just wait a decade. It's like, remember when the prequels were the worst thing in Star Wars? Remember when the Clone Wars was the worst thing in Star Wars?
I can't say I remember that one, because people have been saying the Clone Wars is like the best thing ever made as long as I can remember. But
I was in junior high and people were telling me, oh my god, they introduced this new character, Ahsoka. What an awful character. I hate her.
And now we've swung back around to that. Yeah, so it's,
she's like a fan favorite.
So that was a flat circle.
I think that the shift is starting to happen for the sequels a little bit. Like, I think people are starting to lessen up on The Force Awakens, and I think that some amount of unpacking is happening with The Last Jedi. Like, the core of that criticism, the core of that base that hates that movie is still there, but like it's chipping away at its influence. So here's hoping, I guess.
Here's hoping.
But I think it's time that we can move on to the Discord Q&A section.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your favorite superhero? How long is a piece of string? Where do we go when we die? Why won't my son talk to me anymore? Questions.
I put a little thing into the Discord when we first announced that you were going to be guesting, Daniel, and it's not super active in there. There's not a lot of questions. We did get one question that's I guess tailored for you specifically. Ein, or really cool guy Jamie, asks, if Daniel is GOAT, then how is Pog also GOAT?
Really hard-hitting journalism there.
Yeah. I thought that was...
what you're going to say? You thought it was...
I was just saying, I just thought it was like a really interesting philosophical question, something that really makes us confront our preconceived notions about things.
Well, really, when you consider it, the GOAT that can be defined is not the true GOAT. When it comes down to it, the GOAT is just what we all are part of. It is within you, and it is within me. We are all part of the GOAT, and the GOAT is part of all of us.
I just realized we might have to add a bit of context for non-Discord users. For the past few months, I've been going by the Discord tag Mr. the GOAT. So I think that's where this comes from.
No, it's just because you're the metaphorical GOAT, because the GOAT is within all of us, Pillar. I don't know if you were listening. Yeah. I was.
Well, no, I that's probably why that name came to me now.
Right? Yeah, you had that.
The GOAT spoke from within. But to kind of wrangle that into a maybe more workable question. what's the backstory of the goat avatar?
So when I wanted to return to YouTube, I wanted to make an avatar.
It's because you're furry.
Yes, but this hadn't existed, and so I was like, well, what do I want to do? And because there's a lot of people out there who have, it's a running gag that, like, foxes and wolves are like but everybody does for the first one before they choose something else. And I was like, goats are like a nice little creature and everything, like nothing too imposing. You don't want to be like, there is a reputation, I'm aware, of people who have these rant sonas.
When the rant sona crosses his arms, you're in for a rough ride.
Oh yeah.
I've made that joke before to anyone. I'm like, if I ever try to commission Daniel with his arms crossed, I need you to just stop me.
Yeah, the goat must be put down at that point.
Oh, no. But the reason a goat is that when I was growing up, we lived for a few years in a little rural area, actually, in Arizona, southwest suburb of Phoenix. And we had a little plot of land, and we had these pygmy goats. And would you believe it, these goats were some of the sweetest creatures you could ever imagine.
Oh.
They would come up to kind of like halfway between your knee and your hip, and we would come home from school, and they would come running up to the fence so that we could pet them. They're very low maintenance, and we just kind of had them so that way when we would flood our yard to water the land, because that's how we did it. So you just cut off a piece of the canal and let it flood your yard, and that was your water for the year. Afterwards, we would just let them roam around, and they would keep the yard trim, because just by eating.
That's so cool. I actually got an opportunity when I was younger to. Oh, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh no, I was just saying they sound like helpful little guys,
Yeah. When I was younger, I got the opportunity to visit a goat cheese farm, and I was like, I must have been like, I want to say 12 or 11 or 12. And we were able to see the goats, like the young goats that had just like been born like a couple weeks before. And there was like a whole little room in a stable full of them. And they were just like running around, and like they would come up to you and they would just like start like licking your hands and your head, pretty much every part of you that they could reach. And they would just like bleat at you like, meh, 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 meh. And they were very sweet animals, but also they really wanted your attention all the time. And I only got to see them for like a couple days, and ever since then I've just always like loved like farm animal goats. So that experience sounds like heaven for like 11 or 12-year-old me.
Yeah, this is like, and I figured, so it's like, it's an animal that I like, and it's also something that's like not very, not a super popular, species to pick. So I was like, I'll stand out a little bit more. And I had like kind of like a proto Daniel in my mind, where he was a little bit squatter, a little bit blockier. And then Redian took, as like, here's what I'm thinking. And he made the design a lot better. And I was like, yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, we got a little history on the Daniel the goat.
Yes.
And we got our philosophical question answered. So we have another question here. This is actually the one I teased earlier from Captain Kennedy. This might be more of a full-time YouTuber question, but open to all. Do you often multitask with creating/developing multiple videos at once? And if so, how do you divide your time and prioritize projects?
So what I do is, I'll answer this in 2 words: weaponized ADHD. So what I do is I think like, this would be, I have a whole list of like different ideas. Like, this could be a video perhaps. And then I'll begin writing about it. I'll begin researching it if it's, warrants getting a little deeper into the weeds. And I'll work on it. And then I'll kind of get a little bit tired of it, or I have to go to work or whatever. And then what I'll do is the next time I'm working on stuff again, I'll think, oh, this is something I want to work on some more. So I'll load up this old script, but it might not be the one I had started earlier. It might be a different one that I started even earlier than that. And so honestly, I have like a dozen little pots that I kind of all circle around and I'm developing. And then I get to a point where I'm like, okay, no, this one, I've been making good progress on it. I'm feeling really passionate about it. Let me take this off of the script writing stove. Let me record it. I'm going to focus on getting this done. And then put it out into the world. So at any given point, I'll have like, I think it is like 12 different scripts that I am working on right now. Some of them don't see the light of day because I just feel like, this isn't going to be strong enough. Because what I want to do ultimately is not just talk about a movie, but also give some unique perspective on it. Like when I talked about The Shape of Water, I was able to reference an old textbook I have actually about consumerism in America and leverage that perspective to make it a more unique video. And that through that way, I'm able to like, okay, this is something strong that I'll be proud of putting out there. And then stuff where I'm like, this doesn't really feel like I have that much to say about it. Like, I was going to make a Puss in Boots The Last Wish video. I have that script. I was working on it. And I even finished it. I was finished drafting it, and I was like, all I've said here is the movie is good, and everybody already knows that.
It's when I remember when the Shea Frillis video about that movie came out, and I saw some like a little bit of discourse around it, because like it came out and it was like 40 minutes of about how the movie was good, and people were like, this is a fine video, but we kind of know this all already. You're not really saying anything new. So there's that question of like, if something is really good, but people have already talked about why it's really good, is it worth it to just like say the same things over again if you feel like you're not saying anything new? And that's a really interesting question, and sounds like that you've kind of come across that, and your kind of assumption was like, well, I'm not really saying anything different that people haven't already said, so I don't really feel the need to make this.
I've kind of got a similar thing to that coming on at the moment, to be honest. You guys know Mr. Bircham or whatever it's called, the Daily Wire thing. It's like a Ben Shapiro streaming services.
Yeah,
my god! I started watching something about it, and I can't stand the Daily Wire.
So there's a lot of videos. There's a lot of videos that are like, haha, this is really bad and it's not very funny. And I'd never pick up something like not to diss those videos, but like if I was gonna engage with a Daily Wire bent key thing, I would want to use it in a more substantial way than that. And I had a good idea. I'd found, because we've talked about this before on this podcast, Reddit likes to throw subreddits I don't like in my face, and one of them was The Critical Drinker. And I saw this video I found it in the wild in the Critical Drinker subreddit, and it was like a Christian mother watching this very right-wing show that had like a few, and I don't say this to be demeaning, but literally token like minority figures in it, like who are there so the Daily Wire can say, oh no, we're just conservative, we're not excluding anyone. There's like a gay character who isn't like textually torn down constantly, and so that was enough that viewers like this person in this video would be watching it and say, wow, I can't believe the Daily Wire's gone woke. And so I can find it and send it to you guys after this if you want. But I was really happy that I stumbled across that in the wild. And I started having ideas for a video that would be like, Mr. Bircham is the Leopards Ate My Face TV show, right? It's like, this is what happens when the right wingers, they like to play the game, the plausible deniability game. But if you do that long enough, you get to the point where you try and put in the plausible deniability, and your own audience devours you for it.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I mean, I still might do the video, I don't know. But then I was kind of the other ones from other people who focus more on cartoon stuff was popping up, and I think it was like Saberspark or someone. I just clicked their video, and they'd found the same clip, and they hadn't gone the exact same way with it. But now I'm like, well, is it worth me making that video if kind of a pivot point of the video, people are already being seen?
Well,
so it's like,
I guess to that point is that since neither of us knew about that because like I have no problem with that kind of content being made, but personally I don't really like watching shows, like watching content that's just like, this is the new show and it's bad, and like it's bad because of this, and so I would have never known about that. But if you made a video that was explicitly about like, hey, this is about how this interesting phenomenon where the leopards eating my face effect happened with this show, I'd be more interested in seeing that, and I think a lot of people would be in a similar position that I would be in to talk about that, because that's like a specific interesting part of this whole hubbub that I didn't know about.
Yeah. So I think I'm not writing that off, but like if I do make that video now, it won't just be talking through the show about that idea. I might, maybe tomorrow or the next day, I might put some time aside and try and like look into the leopards eating my face phenomenon more widely, find some kind of historical examples, and then turn the video around that. But I think even if that video does get made, I think is a good testament to the fact that you as a YouTuber, even if the viewer necessarily doesn't always see or doesn't always care about what some other guy's saying, like you've always kind of got your ear to the ground. You're always trying to gauge how played out is this thing, even if it's an authentic reflection of something I feel about a thing. Like you were saying, Daniel, like where is the line between expressing myself in an interesting way and kind of being in the slipstream of others?
There's one thing I've wanted to talk about for a while, and I have been really racking my brain on what I want to say about it. And I think I finally got a good idea for it, because I want to talk about The Lord of the Rings. And the thing
I can't say I've heard of that.
Okay.
Is that like an obscure like thing?
It's this trilogy of these movies that came out that's based on some books from the 50s. I don't think anybody's ever heard of it.
So kind of like Dune.
Lord of the Rings. That was the thing that was referenced in Doogal, isn't it? That's what I'm thinking of. That's where I heard it before.
I am the Lord of the Springs.
I knew it sounded familiar.
Yeah.
But because the things that everybody has talked about, even I don't know if you've watched Cosmonaut Variety Hour.
Yeah.
I see stuff now and then, yeah.
He did a Lord of the Rings video a couple years ago, and he literally opened it with, everybody has already talked about these movies. And so it's like, when people are already saying that much, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
But I think that there is one specific aspect I'd like to touch on between movies, the books, including the Silmarillion, and that's this idea of like, I don't even know really how to define it. It's like not quite nostalgia, but this constant recurring theme, this kind of ache for a world that increasingly seems unfamiliar to you, and you kind of like, you realize that, eventually you're going to have to leave it, but there's still that kind of deep sadness about how you can save the world but not recognize it afterwards.
Are you talking about how the Shire feels weird after you've watched the whole trilogy, and like the beginning it's so cozy, and at the end it's like the same, it hasn't really changed, but it's changed by the context of the world that it exists in, kind of a thing?
Right, like that kind of arc there. The idea of, especially in the Silmarillion, where like elves are kind of cursed to never be content in Middle Earth, because the original intent was for them to live alongside humans, but then some of the Valar are like, oh no, Melkor, the guy before Sauron. I don't know how familiar you are with Lord of the Rings lore.
I've seen the movies.
I know my Melkors from my Saurons.
And I read the book like 10 years ago. That's the extent of my knowledge.
So basically Melkor was like the guy who taught Sauron to be evil, and Melkor literally invented the concept of evil before the creation of the world.
Oh, so he's like
he sang a bum note in the song.
so he's like the Satan, I guess, in Tolkien's like very Christian, Christianized, whatever.
He's almost like he's Super Satan, basically.
Uber Satan.
But basically, he's causing trouble, and so they're like, "Oh, we'll invite the elves to go to Valinor, which is where the Valar live, which are kind of like, think of them like the gods are like the Roman pantheon, that kind of a thing." And
I've heard them described as like the angels in that sense too. So but I know it's not like a 1-to-1 thing.
I think it's the Maiar is kind of like the angels.
the
and
Maiar.
Valar are kind of like the
I'm
gods.
thinking something
Yeah,
different,
you
sorry.
like your Gandalfs.
That's my
the
mistake.
Maiar are the Gandalf, that kind of, and then the Valar are like one level above them. But basically, they bring the elves there, and then the elves like go back later on. It's a long story, a very long story. People
Lord of the Rings, a long story? No.
the Silmarillion is like 600 pages, and the events of the Lord of the Rings take up the last 5. But anyways, so a lot of the elves go back to Middle Earth, but the whole time, they can never be content there. They can never live there alongside humans as was originally intended, because they've seen how beautiful the world was, and the only as it ages, it just feels like it kind of decays around them, where it's like it's become so unfamiliar that they can't be happy there. And the only way to have bliss, basically, is to go back to the land of the gods, Valinor. But I don't know, it's like a very sad state of affairs, really. The elves are very, very sad.
No, that's I don't
Just
know
have
so
chronic
much
depression
about.
all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've not ever delved into the Silmarillion myself. I'm not brave enough for that just yet. But from what I know, because I read I read the Fall of Gondolin on my uni course. That was fun. And obviously I've seen the films, I've read the books and stuff. I don't think it's the kind of the eternal decay of the kind of the world and the metaphysics and the kind of spirit of Lord of the Rings. I don't think that's like one tiny corner of the Lord of the Rings that hasn't been covered yet by video essays. I think that could be like a whole new cavern. Like there's so much there. I think there's so much really interesting ground to cover that could be, you could take it to the Christian place, you could take it to the kind of Anglo-Saxon poetry place. There's so much there. There's so much, and I'd love to see a video from it on you and from you and from anyone else.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, so that way it's like I'm able to approach it in a way that still feels fresh, and also just talk about this thing that I really like because it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the feeling of like Pillar and I have talked about this before in a previous episode, but there's always it's always an interesting feeling when like you have like a piece of media that you want to talk about, but you don't know what you want to say. And sometimes you feel like you're forcing it, but usually if you're able to find something to talk about enough to fill a script, you're probably not forcing it that much.
Yeah.
Anyway,
taking it back to this question, just
Yes.
before we move on to the next one, just as like a counterpoint to what you were saying, Daniel. I also have the thing where I always get the ideas and I kind of start them, but then I find it so hard to go back to something like an idea I've kind of fleshed out a bit or even just noted down. I find it so hard to pick up an old thing and turn it into something new. Like, I think Percy Shelley said something about inspiration, like the moment of like artistic inspiration is like a burning coal, and the moment you see it, it starts to like fade and cool down. And for me, it's like I don't know how to relight the coals. I find it so hard. Like I'm sitting on at the start of this year, I tried to, in terms of like the balancing the shorter ones and the longer ones at once. I had this great plan. I was like, I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing, and also in the background, I'm going to be working on this monster video, and I'm going to put it out, and it's going to be hours long, and it's going to get millions of views, and then bing bang bong, money's never going to be a problem for me again. But so I'm sitting on this. I think one of the reasons, and this is the reason I kind of tell myself that I've stopped working on it, is because I find it hard to see how I would edit it without doing facecam sections. It's like, so the idea of what it is, it's ranking every Seinfeld intro. Like, if you guys have seen Seinfeld, the episodes start with like a short stand-up bit. and then it goes into the episode, and that is kind of thematically related to the episode. So I thought it would be fun to do a video, like an hours-long video, because there's so many episodes of Seinfeld, you guys, where like nominally the video is like tier listing these stand-up bits, but like really it's kind of talking about the episodes, talking about the thematic through lines, and like how, you know, using this format as a way to talk about the whole of Seinfeld, basically. And I'm like 6,000 words into that, and that is like a 40-minute video. But I the way I was doing it was like, I'll do like Monday morning every week, I'll work on this. And I kept that up for a few weeks. And then I slipped 1 week, and I've never been able to get back into it again. So this, I've just got 6,500 words on like I think I got through the first two and a half seasons of Seinfeld. And it's just, I'd love to say that's coming at one point, but who knows? Daniel, if you've got any tips on working your way back into an old idea, I'd love to hear.
Sometimes all you need to do is, because there's times where like, okay, I have to focus on this. I have to get this done. And this is for if I'm doing like a time sensitive video, like when I talked about Wish, for example.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, okay.
And that video did really well.
That video did really well. That was
like something like 200K views or something like that, right?
Just about, yeah. It's like I want to say it's at like 150. It's done pretty well. But what I'll do is I'll just say, okay, you got to work against the inertia sometimes. So I'll just say, write one sentence. I'll put one sentence on the script. I'll say, okay, what is the next sentence? And get the next sentence going. And I say, oh, and then that'll lead into that idea, and then it leads into this paragraph. And what do you know? I've got a whole few pages of it done.
Yeah.
That is a really good tip. Guys, write one sentence.
Yeah, the thing that
it's that easy. I'm not even joking. I'm not even being sarcastic. It might sound like I am.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
It's
That's
the British
really
accent.
Helpful.
It's the British accent.
Yeah.
But I think that this actually leads pretty well into the next question that we have from Maple. How do you stay motivated when working on a larger/longer video? I picked this question because all three of us, either currently or recently, have been working on like longer than average projects. And I think it just slides very naturally into what we were already talking about here. And I guess I was to answer this question and kind of bounce off of what you were saying, Daniel. I don't know if you guys know this, but over the last month or so, I've been working on this big fucking ass video about X-Men.
Oh boy.
This is
first time I heard about this one.
Yeah. And so, you know, that script is finished now. So the video isn't finished, but the script is, and I'm in the process of filming and editing it. But let me go and open it real quick. If I look at the word count is something like 29,815 words. And I have never written something this big before. Like not just videos, but like I've never written an essay this big before. I've never written like a story this big before. This is the biggest thing I've ever
TSD,
written.
I think few people have. This is a long thing.
And I think that part of what I was able to help keep me going was I had a built-in structure to it. You kind of have this with your Seinfeld video, Pillar, because yours is about ranking different episodes and different intros and whatever. So you have like little segments that you can go by. But what I always also did is that the thing that I always found the hardest to do was to get started. Like whenever I was sitting down to start something, like on days that I would dedicate to writing, a solid like at least 20 to 30% on minimum average amount of that time was just me sitting in front of my computer thinking, what the fuck do I do? What's going to go down on the page here? And so what I did to help me do that was I just kept categorizing it into like smaller and smaller sections of like So this, instead of thinking of it as like this 2.5 hour long video about all the X-Men videos, it's 13 sections about all the different movies, and each one of those sections is like a different paragraph about like this different quality of the movie, and each one of those paragraphs is a different bullet point about blah 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 blah, and I just keep abstracting it until I've essentially like reverse engineered the script already, and I just need to put it into words. And the nice thing about that is that even when I come up with that structure, I don't need to follow it 100%. Like if I write down a little bullet point list of all the things I want to talk about in like say a section about Dark Phoenix, I write down all of the sections and I write down all of the things I want to say in like a little paragraph. You guys actually might have seen this because I had you look at the script as I was writing it, but I would always have like these little like parentheses highlighted with blue that just had like different, like a little sentence with things that I want to talk about separated by commas. And I would just, if I was like, I would let it flow naturally, my thought process flow naturally. But if I was getting stuck on something I wanted to say, or if I couldn't think of where I wanted to go next, I would just like look at that list and think, okay, I want to hit this point. I want to hit that point. And part of that you can get from that list is also, another thing is that if I'm doing notes about these videos, about these movies, I take notes while I'm watching the movie. And so then if I'm struggling to think of what to say about the movie for that bullet point list, I'll just glance at that list and see if there are anything like recurring themes or anything. This is a very, very scatterbrained response, but I hope that I think the core thing is that if you're working on a big project, the best way for you to not freak out about how fucking big of a project it is just to subdivide it into smaller and smaller tasks for you to do. Because I haven't made a 2.5 hour long video before, but I have made a 20-minute long review before, and that's about the same length of one of these things. And I've done a thing with like the Star Wars thing where that's the same way I wrote the Star Wars videos, is that I wrote little reviews and then I combined them together into a larger point. And so just thinking about like writing it, and if you have something that's like a larger unified project that isn't like divided by, X amount of movies or something you're watching, you can just think of it in smaller sections. I 100% guarantee you, that is probably why most video essays you've ever seen have always been subdivided into a bunch of little sections. It's because those people have been going through the same thought process of like, okay, if I make this section, then it will be more manageable to organize my thoughts this way. But
Yeah. That's a sensible structure. Because my long videos sometimes, they sprawl a bit. I try to hold them back, but they do sprawl. I think my answer to this question would be, to start with, it's really easy to be motivated when you're working on a larger, longer video, or at least when I am, because most of my videos are below the 20-minute mark, and that's partially because I think I've got quite good at recognizing when I have an idea that's going to be quickish to write about. And part of it is because kind of given the business model of the channel at the moment, I need to be uploading so often, right? So when I do end up being in a position where I am starting a longer video, to start with, like I'm motivated because it's very freeing to know that I've got like a big wide blank canvas, and I like doing that kind of thing. I do more of it if I could. So to start with, that's where the motivation comes from, and it lasts a while, and then. This is the fun part. This is the trick, right? This is one of the advantages of being a full-time YouTuber, the majority of whose money comes through Google AdSense, right? The thing that motivates me past the halfway mark is I'll open up YouTube Studio on my phone, I'll be checking the analytics, and I'll see it says like, most recent upload, 10 days ago. And I'll be like, oh God, this video's not done yet. This video's not close to done yet. What am I going to do? And then that makes me really motivated to crack on and just binge the sound editing and get cracking on the rest of it. Because if I don't, that 10 days is going to creep up before I know it. So yeah. that's a
setting a deadline.
I stay motivated because Daddy Google helps me. He puts the bad numbers in my face.
Yeah, I think setting a deadline is a good motivator to keep going. I will say that is a bit of a double-edged sword, though, because I've told you about this pillar, and I think I've mentioned this before in your and my servers, but when I made the Star Wars video last year, I set a hard deadline for myself of I have to finish this before August ends. And so the problem with that was that I didn't start writing it until August 1st.
Oh no.
And I underestimated how long it would take me to write the video.
Yeah.
And so that meant that I had to like record it in whatever have you, like August 22nd. And I had to, if I wanted to meet my deadline, I had to squish all of my editing into 1 week. And so that was essentially just 5 days of just like 8-hour shifts of just nothing but editing. And I could get away with that because like the school year hadn't really started up yet. And so I didn't really have any homework or anything I needed to work on. So I could just do that. I do not recommend it. It's not good. It killed
It does funny things to your brain.
Yeah.
I remember last week, obviously it's not the same as a 5-day kind of binge like that, but the majority of the Fire in Space video, before this point I had the idea of, obviously Fire in Space is silly and we can look through it to see how people are watching Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. That was the idea I had beforehand. And then there was like a 16-hour period from like 7 a.m. to like 11 p.m. one day, where this was when I knew I had to have a different video out for the Raycon spot. There was like a big, it was, to start with, it was writing binge. The writing was pretty easy because I've been thinking about it. But like, by the time I was kind of 6 or 7 hours, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 hours into the video editing, after the sound editing, like, I've been at it for so long that like, at points when I stopped doing editing to like grab a drink or something, I'd get really, really antsy, and I'd be the part of my head would be like, "This is wrong. We're not dragging video clips around. What's happening?" And I just feel like deadlines are good, being productive is good, but you can't lose sight of the fact that forcing yourself to stick to them too much can kind of twist the gray matter inside our skulls into very strange shapes.
Yeah.
That's kind of because what that is, it's very much it's kind of the flip side of being your own boss. Like, even outside of YouTube and everything, like if you're running your own business, the great thing is that you're your own boss, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's also like there's no division between the voice saying, "Hey, I need sleep, I need food, I need rest, I need relaxation." There's no separation between that voice and the voice saying, "Every minute you are not working is a minute that your dreams are pushing further away."
And that is so true.
You can't be playing fucking Fez or whatever. Or I don't know why I thought of Fez. I haven't played that game in forever. But
for me, it's EU4.
You can't be playing a game, or you can't be watching Parks and Recreation right now. You have to be sitting down in your chair and put your fingers to fucking DaVinci Resolve and get working, slave boy. Otherwise, you're...
And the thing I'll say here, because I know we have I think we have a fair amount of listeners who are creators themselves or aspiring creators. Take it from me, someone who tried to kind of brute force their way to full-time sustainability on YouTube, which kind of worked. But like, I listened to that voice for a really long time, and trust me, if you don't find a way when you are trying to full-time it, trying to be your own boss, if you don't find a way to try and force that voice to separate out from the other one, you will be, you will burn out. There will be long periods where you are not productive, but you're not being unproductive on your own terms. You're not having breaks. You're unable to do the work.
Yeah, because like with that Star Wars video, I brute forced that video and I was able to get it done, and I was able to get it out. But then after that, I was just so unprogressive for like a
and you weren't able to start up again. Yeah, exactly. So even if you are trying to efficiency brain it, like the math doesn't work out. Because we all don't have infinite tanks in our petrol brains. Yeah, that's the metaphor I'm going with.
So like with this X-Men video, I'm trying to learn my lesson from that video, and I've still got a deadline, but that deadline's a lot more loose and far away than it was before. And also I've, given myself a lot more time to work on the project, and so I've been able to move at a pace that is more comfortable. And if I'm feeling tired of the project, I will take a day off. Like because you need to do that, otherwise you'll start to hate the project, and it will never get done.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to kind of to answer this question myself, I'll talk about two videos. And to kind of jump off of the point you've been making, the last time I did a video that had like a hard deadline was 2022. I did a full retrospective where I just ranked every Gravity Falls episode because I wanted to get this out in time for the 10th anniversary of its premiere. And I literally took days off of work to just focus on getting this done from the moment the sun came up to the moment I went to bed, editing this one video, which was the longest video on my channel until now with the Doogalmentary. But that was, and after I got done with that, I told my friends, no more videos with deadlines. I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
My philosophy is, and you know this.
Just sent the I just need to finish the project meme. So I know that one well.
It's evergreen, baby. That one never gets old.
TSD, it's because you asked me before, like, oh, when are you going to finish the Doogalmentary? Because I wanted to kind of coincide when I appeared on this podcast here. And my answer was always, it's done when it's done.
And that's the right answer.
And yeah.
Now the second... Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was just bringing it back to my X-Men thing, but I'll let you go after...
Okay.
The unofficial deadline for the X-Men video is just before Deadpool 3 comes out. But even if I don't, there's even a possibility I won't make that. I don't think I won't make it because that's a while from now, and I'm a lot further along than I was with the Star Wars video. But generally that's the general timeline, and if I don't meet that, then I won't stress about it. Anyway, what were you saying?
I was gonna say another video. And I actually brought this up as we were talking here, talking about because the question was about staying motivated on long-term projects, right? So this past October, I released a video about Grave of the Fireflies. This would have been October 2023.
Yeah.
The earliest draft I have for that script is October 2021.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
So I was working on this for 2 years. And honestly, it was something I was really passionate about. I'm really fascinated with the art of animation. I'm really fascinated with history. And so this movie was a very potent combination of the two. And I was very lucky I was able to actually talk with a professor at the local university here. And I was able to ask him for help with reviewing my script, just to make sure I was doing well with it. And he said that he liked it. He gave me some more sources to work with. And it was only because of his assistance that I was able to get it into the place it is today.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
But really,
which, by the way, in case anyone listening to this hasn't seen, is a very good place. You should also watch that video.
Yeah, I've actually been putting it off because I want to watch Grave of the Fireflies first. But knowing what you talked about it and what I've seen of it, it seems like a very well researched and passion project for you, especially with how you talked about it.
Yeah,
so
it's the man who wrote Grave of the Fireflies. Search it up, youtube.com. Get it in your eye holes.
Yeah.
But so just be passionate about something. And again, that's kind of goes back around to how I pick the topics of my videos. That is this something that I will want to spend hundreds of hours of my life working on?
There's always that main thing. It's part of why it's because like for however long a video takes to watch, or if it's like 20 minutes or whatever, it's always like at least like 100 times that in terms of length it took for the person to make it and how much time they had to spend on it. And so whenever I see people who make like hours long videos about things that they hate, like I hate to bring him up every single podcast episode.
No, don't say his name.
I won't say his name, but the guy we're talking about, you know I'm talking about, the gas mask man. I just don't understand how you manage to spend so much time and energy on that, because like you're spending so much time. Like, what is your life like if this is your job where you edit like hours long diatribes about whatever fucking Marvel movie, how it's like the worst thing that's ever been made. Like, I could understand if someone made one of those videos once and then like because they had like something they had to get off their chest of like, this is a deep, passionate hatred I've had for a long time. And I just need to
that was me
express
with Morbius.
Yeah.
But after I made that Morbius video, which is kind of, it's not Mauler style critique, but like it's the nearest to, this thing is bad. It's comprehensively bad, in my opinion. There are many flaws all throughout it. I will go through them and then get kind of confused by the way they all don't add up to form anything at all. It's the nearest to that I've ever gone. And like, making it was kind of cathartic in a way, but also kind of draining. And like, that was 30 minutes. I would not want to be doing 6 hours of that, because all Morbius and no play would make Pillar of Garbage a very dull boy.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't understand being able to make that like your entire life kind of a thing.
Have you ever seen that video that somebody made that was like how Toy Story 4 destroyed everything?
Oh my god, I've seen it. I haven't.
Well, no, I
seen
haven't seen that video because
like,
we're all destroyed right now. We're all destroyed. So how would I have seen that video? Because Toy Story 4 destroyed us all.
It's so.
It's 6 hours, and it's actually like edited and everything. Like,
oh my god.
Like
how do you do that?
My opinions on Toy Story 4, I can't speak for like 6 minutes on it. I'd just be like, oh, it had like some good ideas, but it kind of felt like they're stretching things a bit. That's my entire opinion on the movie there, pretty comprehensively.
Yeah. On the movie or on the video?
I haven't finished the video. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
I just, it's like, whenever I see videos like that, I think about Big Joel's video about Click, where he said that he said that he would make if he got to 1,000 patrons on Patreon, he would make a hour-long video about why he doesn't like the movie Click. But the thing about that is that he was as comprehensive as he thought he could be, and the video still managed to only be 40 minutes long when he ended it. So he had like 15 minutes of like him talking about patron stuff and rambling thong, just so it could be like an hour long technically. And so I just think about how like I'm kind of in the same place as him. It's like I could, for as much as I dislike Dark Phoenix, little spoiler for my video, I could not rant about it for like 6 hours or whatever,
Yeah,
it's like,
I think someone in the world could make a good video about Dark Phoenix that's 6 hours long. That's a video that centers on Dark Phoenix, that isn't just going through it, but it wouldn't be a rant. It would be all the history of the X-Men and like studio politics, and it would be this grand tapestry of things. And like you see a lot of 6 hour videos on YouTube, and none of them are those type of things. They're all, well,
or at least a percentage of them aren't, that is in like whatever.
Very few of them are.
Yeah, because to kind of like wrap this up, like, because talking about something that I actually really like, again, I talked about all of Gravity Falls, the entire show, my journey with it and everything, in about 67 minutes, 40 episodes. That was pretty comprehensive there. Grave of the Fireflies talked about like the real life story, the written story, the animated adaptation, how they built off of different things there with those different layers. 37 minutes. I don't know how you talk for 4 hours about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, the point isn't that long videos are worse. It's that it's harder to make a really long video good. And some of these guys aren't up to that task.
And like, this is coming from like 3 people who have been yapping for the last like 2.5 hours at this point. Like we're not.
Yeah, so we're now officially 1/6 of the way through the podcast.
Yeah, we're not coming from a place of like, how can you talk about stuff for so long or whatever. It's just that it's from like a video creation perspective, the amount of work that goes into making videos that long that are, I just tapped my mic. But the amount of work that goes into making videos that are that long and that like edited and comprehensive is just fucking unbelievable. And it's just, it makes me suspicious whenever there are videos that long of like, is this really what you were going for? Or
are you making this because you're interested? Yeah.
Like, or do you just want a long video?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Why would you subject yourself to this when you're clearly not enjoying it if you didn't just want the funny YouTube time code? You know what I mean?
It's like I'm pretty sure that like Lily Simpson has this like video that is exactly 10 hours long about Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a lot to say about it, and I want to watch that video because I have liked her videos. I've seen it before, but I am almost certain that like time code is in some way a joke. Like there's got to be some kind of thing that's like. Or
if it isn't, maybe she could have been a bit more vicious with the editing. You know what I mean?
And
kill your darlings.
Saying this as three people who have, or I guess I don't want to assume, but saying this as someone who has absolutely no idea about the actual content of that video. I haven't seen any kind of clips of it. So it's just purely speculation based off of just the fact that it's just called Harry Potter and it's 10 hours long.
Yeah, we're just talking about this from our perspective of making videos, short videos and long videos, and seeing long videos in the wild.
Yeah.
It's like, because like I did start watching that one actually. She kind of started with like, oh, the school is kind of dangerous actually for kids. Have you thought about that? And it's like, okay, I've heard this before. But anyways, yeah, like it's all about like making sure that I always try to think, okay, I don't want to fill it up too much. Unfortunately, what I'm doing right now. But like, I always want to try to make a video the length that it needs to be, so that way I can get my points across without feeling rushed, but also without padding it out.
Yeah.
Which is why, again, my longest video on my channel is now about Doogal.
Would it believe you if I said I did not intend for this X-Men video to be nearly this long? I originally intended for it to be like an hour, maybe. And it just ended up being this long.
That's how they get you.
I think that's the best way for long videos to happen, is for them to happen incidentally when you're not trying to make them that long.
And hey, do you know what happened when we weren't trying to make it that long? This podcast.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we are
wiggle our way toward the close. I'm getting drowsy. I think TSD's stuck another batch of something good in my arm, so I'm going to drift off, and I'll see you all in another 50 years. We'll see which subculture's taken over the world then.
And I have before you go to sleep, Pillar, I want to read out the incantation that makes it not incantation.
We're not into too many more TSD.
Very legal.
This is the BetterHelp Hospital terms of service. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We post new episodes every other Friday, so don't forget to follow us on whatever platform you're listening to us on. If you're on YouTube, toss us a like if you liked, and comment if you had any thoughts. And if you're on any other podcast platform, leave us a review, and no matter what platform you're on, feel free to share the show with anyone you think might like it. All of those help support the show and ensure future episodes. Our guest, Daniel Goldhorn, is Daniel Goldhorn on YouTube, on Blue Sky, on Tumblr. Basically, just any platform that you'll find him on, he will be Daniel Goldhorn, or Daniel Goldhorn without a space. You can find Pog on YouTube, Twitter, and Blue Sky Social, all under Pillar of Garbage. He also has a Discord server that should be linked in the description, where you can have your own questions in the hashtag Podcast Q&A channel read on the pod. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and others, all under TSD Talks. We also both have Patreon pages that, among other cool perks, allow you to listen to episodes of this show early. Usually whenever we finish them, it can kind of range. And with that out of the way, I'm TSD Talks.
I'm Pillar of Garbage.
And I'm Daniel Goldhorn.
And this has been the Pillar of Garbage podcast.